there is a nail sticking into my leg. G'day folks, Wren here, and today it is time for my February TBRGate. Okay, so if you have been following along with my TBRGate saga, you will know that there are so many hive ships on the board that I physically don't own any spare hive ships. So the board is a scary place, and I desperately need to start completing my TBRs, and I also need to start like hitting the hive ships so that I can then complete them and get them off, and I just need to like clear the board because it's scary. Did I complete my January board? I did. I'm so excited, mainly because I needed a win, guys. I needed a win. And also because if I did not complete this TBR, I was worried that Paige from Pages with Paige was going to come and take away my books. If you saw the chaos of that live show, you know what I'm talking about. I saved my books, Paige. I did it. No more threats. Too scary. So before I go into my March TBRGate, let's look back at what February had to offer. So for the spooky prompt, I was meant to read Skullduggery Pleasant, and I did read that and I gave it 4 stars. Then for the dark cover prompt, I was to read The Ballad of Black Tom, and I read that and I gave it 3 stars. Then for the female dominant prompt, I was meant to read Go Deep, and I did read that and I gave it 4 stars. Then for the Set in My Own Country prompt, I was to read Women's Talk, and I did read this and gave it 4 stars. Then I hit a hive ship, and this hive ship was the most chaotic because it was the hive ship where I had to pick a book out of my skull jar. I had no control whatsoever and I had to pick 2 books out of it. I ended up picking out The Haunted Mask and Finding Audrey. I read The Haunted Mask, I gave it 2 stars, but I actually DNF'd Finding Audrey because in my mind this was an adult book, but our main character was 14 and my brain could just not get with that, so I DNF'd it. Then for a 5-star prediction, I read Spy Family Volume 2. I didn't give it 5 stars, but I did give it 4, so close enough. Then the last glyph that I had to complete in February was the Next in Series prompt, and for that I was going to read Royally Endowed, which is the 3rd book in the Royally series, and I ended up DNFing this because it goes like back in time a bit. So the prologue starts like 5 years into the future, but then we go back those 5 years to basically at the time of book 1. But when we go back those 5 years, our main female character is 17. She just kept mentioning that she was a high school senior and she was having these very adult thoughts about this guy, and it was just really ick. So I DNF'd it. But that means that I got to take a hive ship off of the board because I completed a hive ship, and I also got a ZPM because I completed my TBR for February. So excited, oh my gosh, like I needed this, I really needed this. Now let's hope I can bring all of this like completionist energy into March. So in March there are a few readathons that I want to participate in. There is the final book support group, there's always the Read My Kindle challenge going on. I'm going to try and get some Kindle books on this TBR. There is also the Indie Accords, which has a quarterly prompt challenge. There is Roll of Reads, which I will be doing a separate vlog for, so you will see my TBR in that, not in here. And then there is the Spring Into Reading-athon. I will do my TBR at the end of TBRGate, so stay tuned to the end if you want to see what I'm reading for Spring Into Reading-athon. Also, I put this book facing outwards specifically for Melanie from Completely Melanie, who is the host of Spring Into Reading-athon, because that's one of her faves, and I also thoroughly enjoyed that book. It was good. Okay, so on to March's TBRGate. This is how I left the board in February. This hive ship I completed, so I can take this away. Thank gosh. Because I completed everything, I earned myself a ZPM. Now I could use that to take off a hive ship. For right now I'm going to leave it for our first spin. Ooh, okay, I think it'll spin now. Right, so our first spin, 5. Of course my first spin is me running into trouble. So I landed on Hamlinto. The episode for that is Midway. Such a good episode, I need to rewatch that. And the prompt for that is BIPOC dominant. Now there is a hive ship on that, so I need to read 2 BIPOC dominant books. So of course, the very first glyph I land on has a hive ship on it. Who's shocked? Not me. So the glyph that I landed on was Hamlinto, and the episode for that is Midway, with the prompt being BIPOC dominant. Midway is such a fun episode that I really need to rewatch. We have Teal'c and Ronan together, stuck on the space station while there is a bunch of Wraith trying to get to Earth. And it's just those 2 guys, and they are the most badass people in both Stargate shows. It's just them kicking ass, and it's great. And I love it. So the prompt for that is BIPOC dominant, and I need 2 books. So the first one I decided to pick was Wyla the Kuri Princess. This is the first book, Guardians, and it's by Jordan Gould and Richard Pritchard. Every time I say that name, I love it so much. It's such a good, like, alliteration. This is a Indigenous Australian story written by 2 Indigenous authors. Just look at the cover. It's awesome. This is definitely a historical fantasy. Historical as in we have some megafauna going on here, which is very cool. And it is just about Wyla being a badass and saving her people. So her family is stolen by a dragon army, which sounds cool, and she has to help them. So it sounds very cool. This is a middle grade book, but I am so excited to read this. It looks like it'll be fun, and there are some amazing drawings in here. Do you see that she has a little koala? Then the second book I decided to pick for this BIPOC dominant prompt was Awakened by Moni Boyce. This is a book I've had on my Kindle for a long time, and it just looks very cool. So there's vampires and magic and someone haunting someone's dreams, forbidden love, which is always fun, and a vampire king is stalking our main character. But it sounds cool, and I mean, just look at the cover. Alrighty, spin number 2. Alright, that is mostly on the 15. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Are you joking? So I landed on Earth. The episode for that is Doppelganger, with the prompt being nighttime themes. And it's another hive ship, so that is 2 books. So of course, the next glyph I landed on also had a hive ship on it. Again, is anyone surprised? No. So I landed on Earth, and the episode for that is Doppelganger, with the prompt being nighttime themes. I feel like I get this prompt almost every time. I have talked about the Doppelganger episode so many times, but it is, to put it succinctly, there is a version of John that is haunting everyone's dreams and turning them into vicious nightmares, to the point where some people don't wake up from their nightmare. It's very cool. I love this episode. It's a fun time. Now, for the nighttime themes, the first book I decided to go with is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. This I don't know too much about, but I have been told to read it by many people. I know it's a sci-fi. I know it's one of those like classic sci-fis, and Ursula K. Le Guin is a very beloved author. I have never read anything from them, so this will be interesting. Yeah, so this is the reason that people wanted me to read it. This book tells the story of a lone human emissary to Winter, an alien world whose inhabitants can choose and change their gender. That's the reason everyone wants me to read it, is because it has like gender changing, gender neutrality, that kind of thing, and that's honestly all I've ever known about it. So I'm gonna read it. Even just that sentence is intriguing enough for me to read. And this is also on my 30 before 30 list, so I need to start reading some of those because July is coming up. Then the second book I decided to choose for nighttime themes was Sink, Welcome to Glasgow by John Leese, Alex Cormack, Sean Lee and Colin Bell. This is a comic series set in Glasgow, which I love because my family is actually from Glasgow, so that's really cool. And it is about this town that is just really kind of depraved and all the bad things are happening. It's considered a warped funhouse mirror version of Glasgow. There are crooks, deviants, and killers. There's a killer clown that is prowling the streets in a blue van, a shovel-wielding vigilante in a fox mask, and the last bus home is always full of corpses. It sounds really cool, and just this cover. It's cool, it's creepy. There's so much blood as I'm flipping through this. I'm excited. I love a good horror comic. I mean nighttime themes because a lot of horror things happen at night anyways, so you just kind of assume. Spin number 3. 5. And a Chevron. Oof, just the board is not wanting me to win this month. A Chevron spot means I have to pick a character card. Go with whatever this one is. Right. Oh, a Wraith Warrior. What was that one that I got? Oh, I should have gone with the one that was on top. So then I got a Chevron, because of course I did. And this board was like, yeah, you want to complete this board? We're going to make you work for it. So I'm working for it. So the character card that I picked was a Wraith Warrior. The prompt that I decided to go with this is the disability prompt. And for that, I decided to choose Sensory, Life on the Spectrum, an autistic comics anthology, edited by Bex Ollerton. I had an arc of this on NetGalley and I unfortunately never got to it, but now it is in physical print, so I'm really excited to read this. It is a comic anthology focusing on autism, which I'm really excited to read. I don't like anthologies, but I like anything to do with autism. So we'll see how this goes. As I'm flipping through it, I am slightly concerned because there's so much change of art style between every story, but it should be fine. I want to read all the autism things because it's always nice to like learn more about yourself in a way. But yeah, I'm very excited to get to this one. Bin number 3 again. 3. So I landed on Once L with the episode being The Brotherhood and the prompt being adult fantasy. Not super in a fantasy mood lately, but okay. For my third glyph, I landed on Once L, and the episode for that is The Brotherhood with the prompt being adult fantasy. Now, I do like this episode, but I tend to skip it a lot, but it has some really cool elements. There is definitely a very classic fantasy vibe about this episode because the team is looking for a ZPM. They think there's one on this planet, and on this particular planet there was a brotherhood that was dedicated to keeping that ZPM safe. The knowledge of where the brotherhood hid the ZPM has been lost, so the team have to try and find it. I do love that there is like some actual archaeology going on. I know there's something about the episode that just isn't as thrilling as all the others, but it's a good episode, and I don't like to get this prompt as well because adult fantasy and me have not been gelling for a long time, but I do have quite a lot of it on my shelves, so that's why the prompt is there. But for adult fantasy, I decided to go with a book that, wow, it needs to be read so bad. I don't know why I haven't read it already, but that is The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the 3rd book in the Blood and Ash series. I read the first 2 books really quickly, like almost one after the other, and I read them in a few days. And like, these are chunky. This is over 600 pages, but I read them so quickly, which is really unheard of for me. I think the reason I can read these so quickly is because they feel enough like high fantasy where I feel like I'm really in this fantasy world, but it's also written really accessibly that I can read it easily and it doesn't go over my head or bore me or anything like that. So I really want to keep reading this because I love our main couple. They're amazing. Poppy is a badass and I love her, and Hawk is great. And I just love their chemistry with each other. They just have this kind of like savagery to their love, but I really, really enjoy it. And I am very much looking forward to continuing on with this story, and I just really need to get it done. I bought this when it first came out, and it's been years. We have like 4 more books in the series, in the prequel series. I need to catch up. Spin number 5. 3 again. So you can hardly see it, but I landed on another Chevron. So another character card. Just, am I being punished? It's like the first time this year I've completed all the prompts, so the board is like, now we're gonna make it hard for you. Thanks, board. Alright, the character I got is Shia Asar. Okay, I can work with this. And then of course I got another Chevron, because of course I did. And the character card that I got was Shia Asar. The prompt I decided to go for with this was romance. The book I decided to choose was Unguarded by J. Hogan. This is another book that is on my Kindle, and it is on my Read My Kindle challenge and the Indie Accords challenge. This is the 10th book in the Vino and Veritas series, but this series is a very standalone series, so you don't need to read them in order, which is good because this is the first one of that series that I'll be reading. But it is a small town adult romance series, and in this one we have a queer relationship between 2 men, and one of them has just moved to town trying to like start over, and he ends up being a vet's assistant, and the romance is with the vet. So a queer relationship with lots of animals, I'm very much here for that. Alright, let's try and get our 4th Chevron this time. 12. So I landed on Poco Ray, with the episode being Vengeance, and the episode for that being Paranormal or Horror. Good, creepy episode. Love it. The 4th glyph that I landed on was Poco Ray, and the episode for that is Vengeance, with the prompt being Paranormal or Horror. Vengeance is definitely one of my favorites. It very much has a horror vibe to it because the team are investigating a abandoned building, and there are things chasing them, and they're trying to get Taylor back. It's got some like scary moments to it, but it's so good, and we get the best villain coming back, and I love it. For the Paranormal or Horror prompt, I decided to pick Black Butler Volume 2. Now, I would consider this a paranormal because Sebastian, our main character, is a demon living in a human world. In Black Butler, we have Sebastian, our main character, who is a demon that has a contract with this young earl named CL. CL is the Queen's guard dog, so he kind of watches over the underworld for the Queen, and Sebastian helps him with that, but Sebastian, his cover is to be the best butler ever. I really love the anime of this, and I'm going to give the manga another try. I read the first volume last year, and it was really hard for me to read because it was really cluttered, but then I gave the anime a chance and I'm completely obsessed with it. I have watched it so many times now and I love it. So I'm going to give the manga another chance. So I'm going to start with volume 2, see how I go. Number 5. 5. I landed on Agender, with the episode being Runner, and the prompt for that being New to You Author. The 5th glyph that I landed on was Agender, and the episode for that is Runner, with the prompt being a New to You Author. Runner is a good episode. It is where we get introduced to Ronan, and you know, Ronan becomes one of the best characters, so that's always fun. The book I decided to go for this was Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I've never read this, and it's a classic, and it's also on my 30 before 30 list, so I need to read some of them. I don't know what this is about. I know there are 4 sisters, but that's about it. I have been putting off a lot of these type of classics because I always think they're just about women getting husbands and the whole heteronormative crap that is surrounding that. And that doesn't really interest me. But then Kayla from Books and Lala read Little Women a few years ago, and it's now one of her favorite books, so I'm like, okay, maybe there's something in this that will be interesting. Prompt number 6. 3. I landed on CETAS, with the episode being Search and Rescue, and the prompt for that being Sapphic. So you know I'm always down for that. The 6th glyph that I landed on was CETAS, and the episode for that is Search and Rescue, with the prompt being Sapphic. Now, the reasoning for this prompt being with this episode, in this we find out that one of our side characters is actually a lesbian, which, you know, awesome. I really do love this episode because we have a bunch of main characters that are stuck after a building collapse, and it's just the rest of Atlantis trying to find them, and it's very cool. Like I always say, I love people being stuck and things happening, so it's a good time for me. So for the prompt sapphic, I decided to read My Lady's Lover by Nicola Davidson. This is again on my Kindle, so it is good for the Read My Kindle challenge as well as the indie accords. And this is a historical sapphic romance. It is the first book in the Surrey Sexual Freedom Society series, and that just sounds like fun. It seems to be that we have these two women who are in kind of high standings in society, but they're both married to awful men and they have an affair with each other. Usually cheating is a very much no-go for me. I don't like reading about it, but I'm intrigued enough by this one that I'm willing to look past my general ick factor of cheating. Okay, what will hopefully be the very last spin for this TBRGate. 1. So we landed on Robandus, with the episode being Hide and Seek and the prompt being Dark Cover. This is one I got last month. Then the very last glyph that I landed on to complete our gate address for March was Robandus, and the episode for that is Hide and Seek, with the prompt being Dark Cover. Again, I feel like this is a prompt that I land on all the time. So the book I decided to pick for this was Dark Space by Lisa Henry. This is again on my Kindle, so it works for the Read Your Kindle challenge and for the indie accords. So this is a queer sci-fi indie romance? I feel like the romance might be a little low and just higher on the sci-fi. I'm not sure. This seems like a really hard book to describe, but there is a military-esque station that is trying to protect Earth from a particular alien race. This guy is taken out of stasis, but he needs a heartbeat, so this other guy becomes his human pacemaker. Don't ask me how that works. Okay, they're sharing more than a heartbeat. They're sharing thoughts, memories, and some very vivid dreams. Okay, so for my TBRGate for March, I have all of these, plus Awakened, The Left Hand of Darkness, Unguarded, My Lady's Lover, and Dark Space. This is a really big TBR, actually. And I'm about to add to it, because now we're going to do my Spring Into Reading TBR. So for the Spring Into Reading-athon, there is a bingo board. The way I'm going to do this, I'm going to try and do like a C. I'm going to do the outside rows, kind of. So I'll do the top row, side, column, and then the bottom row, if that makes sense. Okay, so for the top prompt, a book that has collected dust, going to read The Crown of Gilded Bones. Because like I said, I've had this for years and I still haven't read it, so it's definitely been collecting dust. So the next prompt is first in a series. So for that I will be reading Cat Gamer Volume 1 by Wataru Nadanti. This is a manga about this gamer girl deciding to take on a stray cat, but she doesn't know how to take care of a cat, so she uses video games to help her figure out how to care for a cat. Then the next prompt is smut, and for that I will read My Lady's Lover, because from what I've seen, some of the reviews, they're just like good smutty time, so. Then the next prompt is audiobook, so for that I will read The Left Hand of Darkness, because I do have this as an audiobook. And then the last prompt on that top row is element on the cover. So for this I'm going to read Piece by Piece, The Story of Nizrin's Hijab by Priya Huk. At the element on the cover there is water drops. From visionary debut graphic novelist Priya Huk becomes a powerful story about recovering from trauma and finding your own identity. It seems to be about this young girl going to live in Oregon in 2002 and the hardships that come with wearing a hijab in America. Okay, so now we're going to go down this row of prompts. So obviously the first one was the book that collects dust, which was Crown of Gilded Bones. Then the next one is a book that intimidates you, and so for that I'll read Little Women, because it's a classic that intimidates me enough. And then the next prompt is a non-reading prompt, so that's always fun. and that is a self-care day. So I don't know what I'll do for that, but you know, sometimes self-care is just curling up in bed for a day and doing nothing. So I might do that. Then the next prompt is a classic or retelling. So I decided to kind of do a retelling-ish, and that is Tiger Lily by Jodie Lynn Anderson. This is a Peter Pan inspired story. Yeah. It does seem to be about Tiger Lily having to have this relationship with Peter be a secret from her family because they don't approve. I'm not sure. I've had this for years and I just need to give it a try. And then the bottom corner prompt is flowers on the cover. So for this, I'm going to read Grimm's Manga Tales by Kei Ishiyama. This seems to just be Grimm's fairy tales but in a manga form. I'm not really sure. I'll give it a go. But there are very teeny tiny flowers, like there are some flowers right there on every corner. They're so tiny, but they're there. I promise you they're there. Okay, so we've got Snow White, Puss in Boots, Hansel and Gretel, Rapunzel, the Frog King, the Two Brothers, the 12 Hunters, Little Red Riding Hood, the Singing Springing Lark. It looks like it could be interesting, but it's quite big. And then going from our next bottom one. So the first one is obviously the flowers on the cover, which was the Grimm's fairy tale. Then the next prompt is under 250 pages. So for that, I will read Black Butler Volume 2. These are usually around 190 pages, so very much under. And then the next prompt is pink or yellow on the cover. So for that, I'm going to read The City on the Other Side by Marigred Scott and Robin Robinson. But this is another graphic novel that I randomly picked up in the library. It seems like a portal fantasy, so that sounds fun. And just like, there's like a little mushroom person. It looks cool. There is pink and yellow on the cover, so there's that. So the Great Quake of 1906 in San Francisco is still a recent memory. So Isabel breaches an invisible barrier and steps into another world. She discovers a city not unlike her own, but magical and dangerous. Here war rages between the fairies of the Seelie and the Unseelie courts. And then the next prompt is fairies on the cover. Now, I decided to take a bit of a spin on this. So instead of fairies being actual fairies, I decided to use fairies as in the gays, because we're all often called fairies. So we're going to embrace it. You know, we're reclaiming all of the words that they used to tear us down. So for this, I will use Unguarded by Jay Hogan because it's a queer romance and there's a queer guy on the cover. And then the last prompt on the bottom row is another non-reading prompt, and that is to drink your favorite iced drink. So I'm just gonna get a carton of iced coffee and drink that, I guess. It's the only iced drink I could really think of. I think I'm adding like another 5 or 6 books to my already large TBR. Oh gosh. Okay. That's all the books now. Oh boy. Luckily, a lot of these are comics or manga or graphic novels, so that's pretty good. But still, this is a lot and this is kind of heavy. Okay, well that is the end. Do you think I can complete my TBRGate for March? I really hope I can because I would like to kind of clear the board. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in my next one. Bye.